mean by a Christian? Define what
I don't want to
Christian
get locked into this. I want to read more from the Talmud. No, you interrupt me every week, Chris.
Do you believe what the Quran says about Jesus Christ? God is listening.
You don't want to talk.
God is listening, and He's not the God of Islam.
There is only one God. There is only one God.
What are you afraid of? Me?
You're a joke, brother. That's the problem. You say we're not brothers.
Shall I give you a...
They need a narrative. They need a grievance where white people are feeling like there's this two-tier police system. And what happened at the last one is basically a load of people just got hefty prison sentences. And I just don't want that to happen again. But it is inevitably going to happen again. I think that there's a grievance narrative being hawked upon every race, basically. So I think that if you're a black guy, you can find articles about stop and search and how unfair it is and police brutality. If you're a Muslim, you can look at the footage of those Jesus having their heads stomped on a few weeks ago, and you can see Reform UK saying, yes, that was great, but I want to see the police do more of that, give them medals. And if you're a white guy, you can look at whatever Reform is saying about two-tier policing. So my belief is that you can pick and choose. There's one to appeal to every race. Key is, you're not a victim, life is hard, deal with it, it sucks. We also have certain rules in this country. We're not America, we don't have free speech, so you don't get to say, burn a migrant hotel. There's not a single person who's ended up in prison who didn't plead guilty to racial incitement. I think the sentences might be super harsh, but I think they're super harsh as a deterrent. My personal perspective...
Come after you?
No, I'm absolutely not worried. I'm worried that the campaign against anti-Semitism, a very specific group run by Gideon Falter, are watching every single word that I say to try and build up a court case against me and get me done for hate speech. And I think they're struggling. And that's why it hasn't happened yet. Because I am here on the box talking about all this stuff to prove that you can do it without saying arrestable stuff, basically. Also, at Speaker's Corner, your rights are protected. And if I got arrested for saying something here, I would like to believe people would kick up a fuss about it, because it's not supposed to happen. I think there are specific bylaws that protect your rights here.
Well, I think the other point to make is, as a Christian, and of course we can fail, but we are commanded to love our neighbour. And love and hate are, that drives out hatred. So anything Nick ever says, when you drill down, there's no hatred of the Jews there. It's actually trying to help them. It's not the same as criticism. We have a duty to criticize, but that's not hatred. That's actually an act of love.
Yeah, and the criticism is fairly simple. It's that they've rejected the moral code that the rest of us are quite naturally living under, whether or not you believe you're a Christian or a Muslim or an atheist or an agnostic or whatever. We do actually, because we flowered from these societies, we say that we're a Christian nation, we do have an inbuilt sense of fairness. And it's very clear that what's being done to Palestine couldn't possibly be less fair. And why are they doing it? Why are they making excuses for it? Why is it so consistent? Why can't I get a single voice for Israel to condemn even a single act of barbaric terrorism that they're doing?
There's going to be a stop to it.
A stop to... Well, I mean, there's... What's going to happen? Israel want to... They want to continue expanding outwards into Egypt, Libya, Syria, and that's why they've destabilized everything. However, there is... I'm not sure if it's called a prophecy or what, but a Jewish kingdom never lasts more than 80 years. It's just a rule of reality, and Israel is now on year 76 or 77, and it's looking pretty tenuous. I think that they know this. Now, when I say that, that's just based on history. That's based on, if you go back and check other Jewish projects such as, this is the most recent manifestation.
One former Israeli Prime Minister actually admitted that. He said that gives us a lot of fear, because, as you say, no Jewish kingdom has ever lasted more than 70 years, I think, and that's gone right back through biblical times, right up to Zionism.
Israel cannot continue expanding indefinitely, even though it's trying to. I think there's a mass exodus going on at the moment. I don't think enough people are moving to Israel or Palestine to actually swallow up Gaza, because I've heard that 2 million people have left Israel since October the 7th. So I believe we are seeing the end of that project. I believe there is no justice in the situation until every single Palestinian gets to return to exactly where they lived. So if there's a Jewish state that doesn't allow Palestinians in at all, we still haven't fixed the situation. And I think we're getting that way as well, because people are getting woke to it. There's like no one under the age of 30 that supports Israel, basically. And why? And when it's interfering with stuff like the First Amendment, when they're saying we need to ban TikTok because it's spreading anti-Israel propaganda, and people say, hang on, you're ripping up the First Amendment, then it's just too obvious. It's too obvious. And it's also disgusting as well. It's disgusting seeing all these babies. This is a very agitated man.
You do have those, how old they are, people kids who hang around the Christians supporting what Israel's doing. People my age.
Which guys are these?
I think they're affiliated with SOCO. You know SOCO? They're in the past.
What's that stand for?
Soldier of Christ Online.
Right, okay. Yeah, it was really weird last time because were you with me when I went to the coffee shop? You were, because you filmed it.
Yes.
Yeah. The way that swarm emerged was really odd. Have you seen this footage? So I went up and tried to get a debate going with Bob. I was belligerent, I'll admit that. People have said you shouldn't have touched him.
Only 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
I was there.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah. I will readily hold my hands up and say, yeah, shouldn't have touched him. My bad. And I'm trying to get the same out of him and say, yeah, I'm sorry, but I believe they won't do it because they're too proud. And what happened there when we walked to the coffee shop was crazy, because there were like 6 or 7 of them around me, harassing me, claiming I was doing the harassing. So there's 7 of you, and there's 1 of me.
Well, I think Bob's any credentials he has as a free speech advocate, and he calls himself a muscular, is it a masculine or muscular Christian? And he starts crying, which was a kind of a phase in Protestantism associated with rugby school and that kind of thing. But anyway, he starts crying, "You're harassing me. I'm going to report you for hate speech." That doesn't sound Christian to me. That is exactly the thing he's supposed to be against.
Doesn't sound very muscular either.
No.
It doesn't sound muscular or Christian. And what I'm trying to demonstrate with my little belligerence with Bob, my little act, and he's not here yet, else I would... Thank you, sir. Is he here? No, not him. Yeah, if Bob were here, I would be saying to people, go over and ask Bob to speak with me, because that's all I'm asking, is for him to come to my box and speak to me. Not you, sir. Wait your turn.
Not this
Because
again.
you will derail the conversation.
Maybe I'll ask you questions you can't answer.
Can I ask you some?
Go on then.
Okay, let's read from the Talmud.
This man just saying
First of all, I'm not Jewish,
he's not asking
No,
questions.
and the Talmud is not the word of God.
No, it's not, absolutely. But do you think that we should stand as allies to the people in Israel, the Jews, that say and believe the following?
we?
The Christians.
What do you mean by a Christian? Define what
I don't want to
Christian
get locked into this. I want to read more from the Talmud. No, no,
You said you were asking
you
about-
interrupt me every week.
There we go.
Chris, Zionists have no manners and don't understand Speaker's Corner. It's only ever people defending
He's
Israel
answering your
that
first
derail
question.
it.
Now let him answer the question.
So, a Jew must always try to deceive Christians. Should we be in alliance with the Jews?
First of all, let me say this again.
Yes or
The
no? Yes or
Talmud
no?
is not
Yeah, we know
divine.
that.
We know,
That's
it's
right.
the word of rabbis.
So why are you asking me that? I am not a Jew, I am a
Because
Christian.
last week,
Aren't Jews
Do you
important?
know
Bob
what the-
refused
do
to do an
you
alliance
know
with me because
what
he'd
the
rather
Quran
defend
says
the
about
Jews.
Jesus
He's
Christ.
We can't deal with this. We can't
Quran
deal
says
with
we
this.
wanna
about
talk about the
Jesus
Jews.
Christ,
Infuriating.
my Lord and Saviour.
Can you allow
He
me
was a
to
lesser
speak about the
prophet.
Jews without going
Oh,
on
you're
about
a
Muslims?
You're a joke.
He's
You're
trying
a
to
joke.
push you off the
Than the
soapbox.
father,
He talked about the Jews.
of
He's afraid.
Islam,
Zionism is a
the
mind virus.
paedophile pervert
go.
Muhammad.
We're talking about the
So
Talmud.
is it right for Christians?
Yes, they are.
Is it right for a Christian to ally himself with
You're
Islam?
afraid to talk about the Jews, brother.
You're
No,
very
I'm not.
yeah, you are.
Answer his question.
Anyway, let's have some more, shall
He's
we?
answering your question.
Favour.
Now, all I'm trying to do is get him to condemn lines like this without going on about Muslims.
To them.
Can you condemn this
he's
without
talking about
talking
the
about
Jews.
Muslims?
Give him a
Quote
A
to
Christian
me from
woman.
a demon-inspired book.
Okay.
But I'm trying to demonstrate something, which is that Bob is
I
much
asked
more.
you
Wait, you
about
will not let
Islam.
me speak. You
What
are,
about Islam?
You are a horrendously rude man.
Do you align yourself with Islam?
Why you don't take a step and you do your speech?
Do that, God will not bless you.
If you don't step back,
If you do that, you
Right.
will not be blessed.
I am dressed as a clown.
You are a clown.
If you come within
is a
this, if you
absolute
come and shout at a
guaranteed
clown,
clown.
you should expect to get sprayed in
bloke
the face
is trying
with
to
water.
attack me.
Step back, or you
Trying
will
to
get
warn
sprayed.
you
step.
that the Quran, your holy book,
I've come here to read lines from the Talmud, and this man has interrupted to scream about the Quran, which is the prediction, which is I cannot talk about Zionism, the Talmud, anything that's going on in Israel without mentalists like this
clown,
about Muslims.
a servant of Satan.
Okay, well, what are these guys then? A Christian in danger of death must not be helped.
Respond. Let him respond.
You're not my brother.
Oh, that's very Christian.
Exactly, this is our point. We are not considered Christians. We're not considered Christians by men like this and Bob because they're so concerned with what we have to say about the Jews, i.e. the people that rejected Jesus Christ, the Messiah. They're so scared of us offending them that they refuse to even have a rational...
We're on, brother. Do you believe
Do you believe what the Quran says about Jesus Christ?
you're
God is listening.
You don't want to talk. You just
God
want to
is
shout.
listening, and He's not the God of Islam.
There is only one God. There is only one God.
What are you afraid of? Me?
You're a joke, brother. That's the problem. You say we're not brothers.
Shall I
and you're
give you a
Christian.
proof that I'm God's
people.
servant?
All right, good man.
I have attacked.
Get this man a flint. Bring him over there.
Demon God moves.
referring to essentially the Zionist project because it's not just Israelis, is it? You've got Ben Shapiro and you've got all of these huge media apparatus, even like Rishi Sunak, Keir Starmer, they're all Zionists, aren't they? But they're not Jewish, right? So they're all, this is what the Jews, the religious Jews, believe. And I think that this explains what we're seeing in Palestine. I think this explains how it's possible to see photos of babies with their legs blown off, or their heads blown apart, because a human being should be unable to do that. I'm starting to view Israel as the concentration camp. Because these people get bored. If you're a boy, what happens to you at 8 days old? Something incredibly traumatic happens to you at 8 days old, which we're not allowed to say is a barbaric practice. I just learned recently that when a Jewish girl gets her first period, did you know she gets slapped? That's a tradition. She gets a big slap to the face.
Why?
Well, because I think there's a lot of very torturous brainwashing that goes on. Have you seen the trips that they get taken on as teenagers to sort of Auschwitz and Dachau and Poland and stuff? They get taken out to places that were under Nazi occupation and they basically have to hide in cupboards and pretend to be their grandparents and go through this trauma programming. And their whole existence is believing that Arabs want to kill them purely because they're Jewish. And it's all being inculcated in this little Petri dish, which they're not allowed to leave. But that's why I find it so disturbing when there are mouthpieces that do leave and go around the world. I can kind of understand how if someone was born in such a horrific situation, how they'd end up believing what they believe. But it's when you see like Ben Shapiro or whatever just fly to America and then fly back and support all this, that's when I'm like, how? This makes no sense. Because if you've seen the world outside those walls, you know that this is nonsense.
It's even absurd that the president of Israel is been allowed to go in the States and comment. He went to the States now for like a week or so.
Well, yeah, exactly. He'd be arrested in a lot of countries, but not the United States. And it's because, were you aware of it before everything kicked off last year?
Yeah, I was aware, but not in that specific.
Yeah, I think we really need to talk about Jeremy Corbyn more and the fact that he should be Prime Minister right now. He won the popular vote for Labour leader. The only reason he was removed was baseless smears from the Israel lobby. People like Luciana Berger pretending they were made unsafe and defecting to the Lib Dems as a little publicity stunt when she'd only been an MP for about a year. This was all orchestrated. So according to the popular vote, Jeremy Corbyn should be Prime Minister and he's not. And people don't really talk about this. Our audience has very much got taken over.
I think that was his end goal.
I think it was. And I think that proves the point, doesn't it? Because
Some people are just camera sluts.
well, look, I'm just trying to... My objectives were what? I want someone from the Tommy Robinson movement to come and have a word with me because I think what they've done to me and the way they've treated me has been obscene. And I'm now calling them all cowards. So I did my coward list last time. Now I'm saying any Tommy Robinson fan, any of you, come here and talk to me, because when I turn up to your rallies, you panic and you get the police and you say, he's a troublemaker, get rid of him, he's going to cause trouble. And that's pathetic. Why are you running to teacher? You babies. You shouldn't be doing. No, they shouldn't be doing this. Some of them made up that I was a nonce. Some of them
come on.
They started. Well, they initially started screaming, "You started on my daughter," and then online I saw that I'd been apparently trying to groom someone. So they're desperate. They're really desperate to smear my name by any means possible. And I'm saying, you cowards, come and talk to me directly.
It just sounds like glorified surrender.
Now I'm predicting. Well, no, we are supposed to get a Tommy Robinson fan coming down here next week to talk to me, Danny Roscoe, because he's not actually a coward. So we should actually have a debate with the Tommy Tard, which would be great. But until his next riot, 26th of October, that is what I'm saying. Shut up about your free speech. None of you care about free speech because none of you actually come here. You just want Tommy to give you permission to riot. And if you're stupid enough to go to Downing Street to do a riot, more fool you. Because I am concerned about free speech. It's actually because I believe that he is one of the most unfairly smeared men in the country. And the average person has a view.
He was set up on Question Time. I think that was a big, and that went in his favour in the long run. But I just kind of thought, was wondering why you were interviewed him.
Well, I find that people believe they have a lot of misconceptions about him. Someone came up to me a few weeks ago and went, he wants the entire world to be white. And I was like, no, he doesn't. He's actually very well read on geopolitics, and it's like a consistent nationalist who says every nation should be run by the people of that nation, basically. What I will say is that, like,
he would believe like no mixed marriages, all of that. He's a nationalist. He's
I
pure
mean,
nationalist.
I feel like miscegenation is where it really gets off the bloody. We're kind of fighting.
I was just surprised you done a one-to-one with him.
Well, no, it's the reason for that is because I believe that Nigel Farage and Richard Tice have basically stolen his talking points from 20 years ago. There's no difference between what Reform UK are advocating for and what would have been in a BNP manifesto 20 years ago. But Nick Griffin is not allowed on Twitter and he's still called a monster, whereas Nigel Farage is allowed. Now that's what I'm.
More professional. It's more polished.
Yeah, I'm always.
That's a very interesting observation.
I'm always interested in who'll speak to me and who won't. That is the litmus test. It's like, exactly.